Dillweed Society Film Podcast. I'm your host, Max Scribner, and my favorite movie is Whiplash.
I'm Bob Scribner, and my favorite movie is Enchanted April.
My name is Isabella, and my favorite movie is Pitch Perfect.
And today we are talking about the movie
Elvis.
By Baz Luhrmann.
The premise of this movie is that it is a biopic about the life of Elvis.
Begins when he's about in high school, 17-ish.
Yeah.
Goes through his slow rise to stardom, and his kind of decline and fall.
Yeah. It's part of a larger trend of musical biopics. We had the Elton John biopic. We had the Queen biopic a few years ago. Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsody.
Before that, there was Ray and Walk the Line, so it's in the same genre.
Yeah.
I think there's been a lot of musical they had one about Aretha recently.
Oh, yeah.
But I think this one really follows in the footsteps of the Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsody, just because of how the directorial style of it. Because Baz Luhrmann, he's been away for a bit. What was the last movie he did? Was it Great Gatsby?
I think he did one since then, but I don't know.
He did a TV show called The Get Down.
Right.
On Netflix.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, he hasn't done a movie in a while, maybe since Great Gatsby.
What were your first impressions?
I thought it was terrific. I was an Elvis fan when I was young, and I thought, it really kind of humanized him because he was like a superhero in everybody's mind because he was so detached from society, and showed him in his youth and, gaining popularity. And I wonder if it's really true about why he joined the military, because that kind of put a big stumble in his career.
Yeah, it seems like they had his entire. It's really hard to capture in one person's entire life in 3 hours, and it does feel really fast paced, even though it's a really long film.
Right.
But I think it includes so many different things on throughout his life. Through the editing style, I think it's able to do that.
Yeah. There's usually only 4 scenes per period of his life, and then there's sort of a jump in time, especially towards the later parts where it starts jumping pretty fast.
I skipped a bunch toward the end, I thought. But I thought it was fine. It was plenty long. I think it was a couple hours long.
What do you think they skipped?
Well, they left out kind of
His death?
His death and the aftermath of his death. That's what I remember. It was kind of like the aftermath of Princess Diana dying.
Right.
There were just hordes of people who showed up with flowers and teddy bears all over. That was pretty wild. But that was one of the focus of the movie. His life was the focus of the movie, so it makes sense.
Yeah. And not even his life, his relationship to his manager.
Yeah.
Was a big point of the movie, because I know a lot of people were shocked by how much the Colonel is a main person in the film.
Right. The film it's in second person, and the Colonel is the narrator speaking to the audience.
Right.
Yeah, which we didn't mention yet. So the whole thing is framed by his manager on his deathbed describing how he remembers Elvis's life.
And I think what's interesting in that is that most people knew of Colonel Tom Parker. Most Elvis Presley fans knew about him, but didn't really know much about him at all. And certainly didn't know how much control he had over him. He's kind of like the Don King of the boxing world. He really controlled Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
And Tom Hanks did an admirable job. I know people are saying that they don't really like his accent, and it's a little...
Well, people are just saying that it's a goofy performance. But I feel it's a goofy movie, and he's a goofy guy, so...
Exactly, yeah.
It's funny, your generation sees that as goofy. I could see that, but I don't see it as... I saw it more serious, I think. I don't...
Him? What about...
he was a goofy-ish character, but...
Right.
I guess in real life he was kind of that way.
This has got to be the first time that Tom Hanks has played an evil character in a movie. I can't think of any other movie where he doesn't play someone who's
in Polar Express,
Is he evil in Polar
He
Express?
plays
Well.
like every person in Polar Express, so he's good and evil.
I guess so.
I mean, but I don't know that this movie. Is he really evil in this movie? He says
he's the antagonist, definitely.
He is, but at the beginning he says, "I'm going to do all these things for you if you do stuff for me," to Elvis, and he follows through on all
Yeah,
that.
he followed through, but he like trapped him.
Yeah,
trapped
he
him
like
at
stole
the
from
end.
him.
Yeah, and the idea that he wouldn't let him go overseas because he didn't have a passport, that's really a questionable thing.
And all of the extra fees at the end when
When Elvis
Oh,
tried
yeah.
to quit,
when he tried
and
to
fire
leave,
him.
and
Yeah.
he started charging him for things that happened 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, at the beginning, when he incorporated the father to be the company, Elvis Presley Incorporated or Limited or something like that.
right.
You know, that was like, why'd they do that? Well, they did that so at the end, they could go to Vernon Presley and say, well, if you're going to leave us, you owe us, for pencil erasers. And it's like really knick-knacky things.
Yeah,
$10 million worth or whatever it was.
that's true.
I
But
think
the
he's-
music was so good.
The soundtrack to this movie was really good. Austin
And-
Butler plays Elvis, and I think he sings most of the songs as
I
well.
don't
He
know
sings
if
all the young
does.
songs.
Yeah, all the young
songs.
Yeah.
And the old ones he doesn't sing.
Yeah.
But you told me he came from Disney, and so I kind of expected this spindly little. And actually, when you look at like him talking now, he is. They somehow enhanced his physique in this
And
movie.
he's like 30 years old now.
yeah, that's
So
true.
it's just been a long time since he was on Disney or whatever. But
He was so good. I mean, I think his voice was great. His mannerisms. Elvis moved like that. That was. You know what they skipped? When I was a kid, they would show this thing of Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show, and they blackened out the bottom half of the television screen so people couldn't see Elvis's hips when he was dancing.
that is so funny.
Yeah,
Because that was
They
like,
censored
the whole
it.
first act of
Totally.
the movie was.
Elvis the Pelvis. People called him that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I guess you could rhyme with anything. But I thought it was really entertaining. I didn't realize it was so long when we were watching it. I'm glad we saw it in the movie theater.
Yeah, definitely. If you have the chance, try to see this in a movie theater.
I mean, the soundtrack alone, it's like a
Soundtrack
concert.
is great,
Yeah.
and like visually, like the transitions are great. It's like always stimulating. It's kind of to a maybe detrimental amount.
If it was a
But-
little more, you'd get a headache, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
why I
on the
think-
edge.
It was easy to sort of get lost and not realize that 3 hours had gone by the end of it. Like, I knew it was longer than 2 hours, especially towards the end, but I didn't realize it was 2 hours and 40 minutes long. I think that was because of how fast the editing style was and how dense the plot was.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the
Maybe.
whole, I mean, I guess, would you call this a Bildungsroman? I mean, it's his whole life. Beginning to end, it wasn't birth, but struggles.
Yeah.
So how do you fit all that? Anybody's life is
Yeah.
huge.
You know what movie it reminded me of?
What's that?
A Star is Born. It reminded me of A Star is Born a lot.
Which one? And
All
why?
of them. The new one. New one with Lady Gaga.
Okay.
But that's the only one I've seen.
Okay.
Because it's like that one. It also has this lull in the mid at the beginning of the third act, where the whole plot kind of shifts around, and it's a movie about becoming famous and not having control over your fame, in a similar way to this movie. I thought that they were very similar. Like, there are a lot of parallels between those two movies.
Like when right before he did the Christmas special and he's talking to those producers, and that's the law. Like when she goes back with Bradley Cooper and like becomes a family for a short while.
Yeah,
I can see that.
exactly. And then like the plot reorients itself in the third act.
But then then he falls into the clutches of Colonel Tom Parker.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of that was him and how much, I mean, he was controlled by drugs too. He took amphetamines. I guess that's what it was. That scene where Colonel Tom Parker has the doctor inject him with something is pretty scary.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the father wimps off and...
Remember, that's the first scene in the movie. That is.
Oh, yeah,
they play
it's
that
a
scene
flashback.
twice.
Yeah.
They play that scene twice. I think
remember
they
that.
knew.
That's like Goodfellas. But, no, I thought it was really great. And
What?
Priscilla Presley,
I don't know
I-
what actor played. I
I
think it was
don't-
Australian or something, but I haven't seen her in anything else. I haven't seen her in anything else.
She was so good in this because I only saw her, pretty much when he died.
Yeah.
And then after that, she was on a couple of television shows. She was definitely detached from society, and this really humanized her. It showed, she was an army brat because her father was a colonel or something in the army, and
I didn't realize I think she was 14 in that scene where they met on the army base.
is that right?
The
15.
actual person.
That's
yeah.
a
Yeah.
little spooky.
It is a little spooky considering he was like
25.
early 20. Yeah.
Creepy, I guess.
Well, they said that in the beginning, though. They went, like, in that scene, she's, like, talking about how he's 10 years older than her. I think Baz Luhrmann's
Well, for a little
visual
while.
style works really well with the story,
I agree.
because usually I don't like Baz Luhrmann's style because it's like it like clashes with the story, but in this case it really feels like you're in a casino or like in Vegas, and it's just like on a loop constantly, and it's hypnotizing, which mirrors the story. So
He kind of, in most previous movies, he's kind of in your face trying to grab your attention. And this was certainly attention grabbing, but it was also kind of true to Elvis's fantastical nature.
yeah.
Yeah, he uses. Baz Luhrmann has always like had very camp aesthetics in his movies, and I think that in this he uses them to modernize Elvis in a way that makes him understandable to young audiences as what he was then, now. So I never got how like crazy Elvis's outfits were from the grainy footage that I had seen of his performances in the past. Whereas like after watching this movie, I really understood like how much of an icon he was from a visual perspective,
Yeah.
and
That's a
how
good point.
yeah, like he's wearing like these giant sequin capes throughout the movie. And it's like so extra.
And that adds to his superhero persona.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny, there in a lot of the aftermath of this movie, in the in conversations and things I've read in the newspaper, his family is downplaying his idea of king of rock and roll. In my memory, they didn't downplay it at all.
No.
What do you mean?
So
why?
maybe
His
it's-
family?
Him and his family. I mean, supposedly, somebody called him the king of rock and roll, and he said, "No, B.B. King's the king of rock and roll."
Right.
And that's probably true. I mean, why would they make a statement like that? But the television called him the king all the time, the king of rock and roll.
Right.
And-
they were gonna call him that, but I think the movie was saying that he didn't accept that, or like he was like too humble. Like the movie showed him as very humble. I
It
think.
did. More humble than I think he was.
Yeah, but then again, it's like a portrait of Elvis that's like as kind of a side character in his own narrative. I don't know. I think they really just wanted to show Elvis in the best light, while also like acknowledging that he did some bad things, or like even he took credit for a lot of things. Like he didn't write any song. Like all of his songs were stolen from black artists. But that's not what the movie's about. But they did show that and acknowledge that. But I do think that, like Bohemian Rhapsody, it really didn't show Freddie Mercury as anything. Like he didn't go through hardly any struggle in that film. There was like no conflict.
I don't know, really?
If anything, it was one scene and then it was gone by the next. And so I think they really just wanted to show, like, pay tribute to the artist. If you're gonna make a biopic about them, you're gonna, you want to acknowledge their bad parts, but like, you want to, remember their glory or whatever.
I think there was more than one scene in Bohemian Rhapsody, but it wasn't the main focus.
It was the main focus of Rocket Man,
Yeah.
which is surprising because that's the only one where the person who produced it is also the person in it. I don't know. Yeah, like I think this movie stands as a movie without
having to be historically accurate. Like, even if it were fiction, it would still be a movie.
Yeah.
I think it is useful. It is good to see like how someone reinterprets this historical event now. But of course, they've got to change some things. They've got to omit some things to make a plot that makes any sense.
Right.
In 2 hours and 40 minutes.
I'm not saying it's like a history lesson. I'm just saying that it's a very entertaining way to learn about
Yeah.
Definitely.
some cultural icon.
For
American
sure.
Yeah.
music. So,
You know what we didn't mention though? This was the movie that Tom Hanks got COVID while filming in Australia.
Oh, you didn't know
That's
that.
why he was
that's
in
your
Australia.
Theory. Yeah.
No, that's why he was on Australia. No, I didn't think I do that.
Okay. I didn't know that.
I read some IMDb trivia. Also, why would he be in Australia? He would be filming.
Yeah.
Because Baz Luhrmann was Australian.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. No, I think right. So, I mean, it is definitely a pandemic production.
I think the ending was really good because they merged like different like old footage with Austin Butler to
They
make
did.
it look.
I think they could have done more of that, but that's just me being wanting nostalgic, I think.
Yeah.
And I bet you there's a bunch of YouTube compilations right now that you can look at.
I'm sure. Yeah.
This has got to be up for so many awards.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Oh.
think.
Best costuming, best lead actor, best supporting actor
Yeah.
for Tom Hanks.
I don't think Tom Hanks is gonna have it.
I don't think
Costume design.
Yeah, costume design,
design.
set design,
What do you call the
Editing.
person who chooses
Editing.
the characters?
hair and makeup.
Casting.
Casting.
Because Austin Butler transforms so much
That's
in
true.
this
Oh,
movie.
Yeah.
he goes from young to old. I mean, he's 30 or
He
so
looks so
now.
much. There's a funny picture of him in the old Elvis makeup and prosthetics.
Yeah, it's on Twitter. People are
Oh, I have
memeing
to
it.
look at it.
It's so
Memeing
funny.
it. It's funny.
He's so sweaty under all those prosthetics.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm curious how they even make those cheeks, jowls, and stuff.
'Cause
Yeah.
he looks so much like the real version of Elvis, like right before he died.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
5?
Out of 5, what do you give it? You go first.
I have to be on the 0.5 incrementals.
Yeah.
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 4.5.
4.5. I think I gave it. Well, I started out as a 3.5, but the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. So I bumped it up to a 4.
I think I would give it a 4 as well. I really liked a lot of parts of it, and then there were some things that made me enjoy it less than like other movies that I've rated 4.5, like the length and the pacing issues.
I don't know that I've ever rated anything 4.5. This is the highest I think I've ever done. But I'm not like you guys. I don't have that many letterbox ratings.
Really? What about 100 for Journey?
100-Foot Journey.
I love that. I love watching that movie. I
Yeah.
do. That's one of my favorite movies to watch. But I don't really.
So that wouldn't be a 5 out of 5 for you?
I guess I need to think about my ratings. I don't know. It would probably be. I would say, Enchanted April probably is too.
So that's Elvis. Now we want to get into recommendations. Just quickly, we each have a movie that we want to recommend that came out this year. Max, would you like to go first?
Sure. Batman 2022 is a detective thriller starring Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz. In its depiction of Gotham, where Christopher Nolan's Batman strives for darkness through realism, Batman 2022 creates its atmosphere by amplifying its real elements into the surreal. It's a fun mystery film in a dark and mysterious Gotham worth watching. It's now available on HBO Max.
And I'll go. The Janes is the most timely movie of the year. Coming out in Sundance prior to the Dobbs decision. It tells the story of a collective of women, kind of a grassroots collective, who help women needing abortions or wanting abortions, seeking abortions, help them to get them. And now that we are in a post-Roe world, it's more important than ever to see it and learn this in history.
Turning Red is a refreshing coming-of-age story that tackles the dramatics of middle school friendships through a playful and vibrant style that makes me think there's hope for Pixar animators. It's short and sweet in the truest sense of that phrase, and you can watch it on Disney Plus. And The Janes is, I think, on HBO.
If you are interested in coming on the podcast and talking about a movie that you like, that you saw this year, send us a message on our Instagram or send us an email. Follow us on our Instagram at Dillweed Society, on Twitter at Dillweed Society, and you can see our website at isabellaromaine.wixsite.com/Dillweed Society.
That was fun.
Thanks for listening.